From the town of Tyngsborough, I'm Roni Camille, and this is Entering Tyngsborough. Coming up on the podcast, we chat with Tyngsborough's town clerk, Jessica Brunelle.
Transparency to me, morally, that's what it's a non-negotiable.
Madam Clerk, Jessica Brunelle.
Hello.
Welcome to Tyngsborough's front porch.
Glad to be here.
I'm happy you are here. So let's dive in. We've got lots to talk about. Obviously, this episode is going to air right before the annual town election. But I always ask people that come on who may not know who you are, who may not be familiar with what you do. What's the role of the town clerk and what you do here in Tyngsborough?
Our main responsibilities are probably elections, but we make sure that we handle all vital records. We work with town administrator to make sure that bylaws are passed through the Secretary of State's office. So there's quite a few things.
And you're coming up on your first year.
I am.
And how did 21st of May.
Yeah.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
What made you decide to run for office?
Well, I got involved with elections, and I'd been working elections for years, and I enjoyed it. I enjoy that process. And I did retail management and leadership for almost 30 years. And I just thought, I needed to be home more, and I wanted to put myself into something I enjoyed. And this process was something that I, was near and dear to my heart, and I wanted to run years and years ago, but I was intimidated to do it. So when Joanne had said she was ready to retire, I thought, okay, now's the time. Now's the time.
And what has that year been like for you?
Oh, it's been amazing. Actually, I honestly, I love every day coming to work. It's been a lot of learning, although Joanne was amazing and spent quite a bit of time with me, and trained me, as much as she can. But there's so much that comes up. So a lot of times I'm doing a lot of deep dives and learning, working with the Secretary of State's office, doing a lot of reading, digging in. The everyday things that you just don't think about. But it's been a whirlwind, and I've been loving every second of it. And, the learning and working with Colin's office, it's just been amazing.
That's amazing. And so what's a typical day like for you and your team? I imagine it's more than paperwork behind the scenes.
It is more than, we are forward facing. So, the community is at our window all day long. And, yes, do they come in for everyday things, birth certificates and marriage? I'll tell you what, this new Real ID thing, it's keeping us busy.
Oh, yeah? How so?
Well, because people need copies of their marriage licenses and birth certificates and maybe many marriage licenses. And it's just keeping us really busy during the day, which is good. But I think what our biggest takeaway and what we've been trying to do with everybody who comes to our window is that we hope that we're educating them a little bit more in things that maybe they didn't know, whether it be what we do, if they're asking questions or if they've been afraid to ask questions. We're trying to make sure that everybody who leaves our office leaves with a little bit more knowledge than they came in with. And they know that my door is always open. So if they have questions, they can come in and sit at my desk and we can go over things, whether it be elections or census or, even just certain processes that they were unaware of. So
that's a great mindset. So let's talk about the vital records and resident services. So your office manages vital records such as the birth, death, marriage.
Yep.
Can you walk us through that process and how can residents get copies of those documents?
So right now, the only way they can get copies is by coming into the office. And, we work with the state. There's a system. We pull it all up. Unless they're older and I can't get them online, then we have to go into the vault. And then we have to hand type them up from, some of the older, books, which are very cool to look into.
Yeah. How far back can you go digitally, and then until you have to go back into the vault?
I want to say in 1970, I want to say 78, I pulled one for 1970. I could be wrong about that. But any of the ones that we have to go back, and I just did one for 1934 the other day.
And that was in the vault?
That was in the vault.
What else is in that vault? Because you've pulled out volumes for the Civic Leadership Academy. You brought like town records
They're
as
beautiful.
far back as 1809.
Yeah, they're beautiful. And it's births, deaths, and then any of the town meetings. But, now our town meetings are done, we type them. It's all electronic.
Right.
But they had done their town meetings all by hand. All of the minutes were done by hand and dated, and some of them go back quite a ways, and they are so interesting to look at.
Elegant and the
Elegant.
cursive and...
Oh, gosh. Somebody's going to look at mine someday and be like, what happened? What happened? My writing is not as beautiful. But, yeah, so we will be going digital with our vital records. I'm hoping by, I'd like to say the end of this year, but definitely in 2026, so that people can order them online, and then we can just send them to them by mail, because we've already started with our credit card system.
Congratulations.
I'm excited about that. So that system is already set up. We're just waiting for me to give the word to go live. So they'll be able to get, dog licenses are going to be a different place, but birth certificates, marriage certificates, death certificates, they'll be able to order them online, and we'll be able to just mail them to them.
Okay, that's great. That's great for you.
Yeah.
Great for your office and great for the constituents. And we'll get into dog registration. So you do a lot of marriage licensing.
Mm-hmm.
So for those wanting to get married, what's the process like here in Tyngsborough?
You and your partner have to be present. You come into town hall. We just need IDs. They fill out the proper paperwork. We pretty much tell them it's a 3-day wait, which it is, a 3-day wait.
Why is that?
Well, I want to say that back in the day, you had to make sure you had blood work done. And you had to wait that 3 days for the blood work to come back. So that's always been a thing.
And that's Commonwealth law. That is a state law.
Yeah.
That is not a thing that your office can override. That is
Yep. But they don't
mandated by
do the
law.
blood work anymore.
Right.
But we do have to wait unless there's a court order saying that, yes, that, you can fill it out today and have it tomorrow. And whether it be, somebody may be passing and you want to get married quickly, things like that. But for the most part, we haven't had to worry about any of that, and it's been a 3-day wait for almost everybody.
While we're on that subject, because oftentimes there are a lot of couples that come into the office and there might be a little hiccup, either before or during the whole
Hiccup
process or after the fact. Let's talk about that. So when you present yourself to your office, the intent of getting married, you must, and you pull it in Tyngsborough or any town clerk office in the Commonwealth. You're getting where I'm getting at,
No,
right?
no.
You must get married where? If you're pulling it from your office, you must get married
In the state of Massachusetts.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't go to
You can't go to New Hampshire. No.
or Hawaii or
well,
wherever.
there's certain, if they're destination locations, they have certain ways of working with the towns. But yeah, so if you are a resident of New Hampshire and then you fill it out here and then you decide you want to get married in New Hampshire, it doesn't work. You can't. The biggest hiccup we've had, which I've found interesting, is that, say you're already married, but if you wanted to get married and you wanted your best friend to marry you, and that person goes and gets a ministry license, but if they live in New Hampshire and they're not part of a brick and mortar church here in Massachusetts, they still have to get what we call a solemnizer letter. So they have to go through the Secretary of State's office and order that solemnizer letter. Because if their address is New Hampshire and they marry you in Massachusetts, it's not
rejected.
legal. What is it? It's
Rejected.
rejected. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's not pretty.
What's the other thing that you also get in your office? Signatures missing?
Yeah, so the bottom half of the license has to be filled out by your solemnizer. And I tell everybody when they come in to fill out we have the same speech. I've made it easier and made a copy of what it's supposed to look like and attached it to our little sample document. But yeah, they have to print and then they have to sign and they have to spell out the month. So if it's May 20th that they get married, it has to say MAY, not 5/20. And I would say 7 out of 10, I have to send it back to a solemnizer. Yeah, it's amazing.
And it's not you, it's not policy, that's the state. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts says this.
Yes, right. And now we've started giving longer envelopes, like bigger envelopes, to mail it back so that they don't bend or fold them. Because the state will reject it and send it back to me if there's a fold through, if it comes in a 3-fold. If the fold goes through any of the lettering, they're now sending it back. So
wow,
it's interesting what they take and what they don't take.
And the pen.
Black pen.
Not blue, not
Yep.
red, not purple.
We send it back for that. And again, 7 out of 10 times. It could be perfect, but they used a blue pen. I don't know.
Okay, that's enough about marriage licenses. But I mean, that seems to be every so often you get. I mean, you could
Yeah.
have a counter and say, hey.
Yes. Once a week, I have to send it back. Once a week, at
You
least.
might need to have a board. How many days we've not had any errors on the marriage license?
We should do that.
So in addition to marriage licenses, you also handle business certificates. What exactly are those? Why does someone or a business need one? And how do they apply for one?
So, and again, until we go online, we are working with OpenGov, so we're going to have a different system very soon with business licenses. But anytime you're going to work with the public needs to know who you are, what you're doing. And then if you're owning a business and you try and get a checking account, the bank needs to know you have a business license. So pretty much any person doing business here in the town has to have a business license. And then depending on what it is, they have to go through the planning board and the Board of Health, depending on what it is. And we're hoping that OpenGov will take care of most of those questions that people have.
And OpenGov is the platform that you guys use.
It's a platform, yep. And, when they're ready to apply for a business license, they'll put in what type of, is it brick and mortar, is it this, is it that, and then it will prompt them to the next steps, which is going to be really good.
Okay.
And we can thank Tom and IT for that.
Yes, thank you to our IT people. Thank you to Tom and Wilder.
Yes,
They're a great resource.
absolutely.
So in addition to that as well, you also manage the recreational licenses like fishing. What does that work? How do people come in person?
It has to be in person. Yep.
And will
They
that
can be
go-
residents, non-residents, and we pull their license for them. They could do it from home themselves, but we do it. It's just a service we provide, and we give them their license. It's pretty quick and easy. We just need a driver's license to verify who they are, and it ranges in price. Please don't ask me the prices.
I won't.
But it definitely ranges because, if you're over a certain age, there's a different price. If you're not a resident, it's a huge jump. So, and we have a lot of people from New Hampshire who want to fish, in our waters, which is good. Or
And
hunt.
ultimately, will you be able to do that online as well? Okay, maybe
I
not.
haven't started that yet. I haven't. I mean, you can. Yeah, I mean, eventually, I think I can add that because we did add Fish and Game to the platform, but it might be a little bit more. It's a good thing for me to dig into.
Okay, that's the only gotcha question I have.
No,
for you
that's
today.
not. It's a good question because now my wheels are spinning as to what more can we. How else can we make it? Now, we want everybody to come in because. We like the people. We like it when they bring their dogs, too.
Yeah, I know. I noticed
Say
that. You got dog treats in your office.
Dog treats in the
You got
office.
chocolate. You got dog treats. It's great.
Everything we can do to make somebody happy when they leave, we have it.
Yeah, and then if they come with their taxes, you point them next Wednesday.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't take the taxes.
Dog registration, dogs. Let's talk about that. It's is the responsibility that catches residents, sometimes by surprise.
Yeah.
What should Tyngsborough residents know if they are dog owners?
That it is not just a Tyngsborough rule. It is a state requirement that all dogs are, registered with their towns. And we, it's one fee. They start coming out in the end of December for January, the following year. And Their basic price, $7 or $11 if your dog isn't spayed or neutered, or they call intact. But after March 1st, we start charging a late fee. Yep. You have to have them registered. Again, it's for their safety. And I don't know how many times we see on the web pages, is this your dog? Whose dog is this? If they had their tags on them, we could just pull the numbers up. Instead of going to, the web pages, they could just call me and I could tell them who belongs to that dog or who the dog belongs to. But most of the time they don't have their tags on them. So it's important to keep the tag on the dog.
And do you work with animal control with the registration and like the enforcement? I know there's a
ACO CNC.
Yes, and no leash. Is that your office?
Leash law. They have to be. Yep. All those fines would come through me. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Of course, they're given out by the ACO, but
sure.
But it all comes through our office.
Okay. Anything else you want to add about dogs, pets? Oh, you recently did this is something new from your office. You did a clinic.
We did a rabies clinic.
You did?
Yeah.
And a registration. It was like...
it was a rabies clinic and registration. So we're hoping to do that, if not every year, every couple of years, but we're hoping every year. Because, of course, rabies certificates are either a year or 3 years, depending on how old your dog is. But it went really well. It was so nice. We had it at the Council on Aging or...
Senior for Active Living.
Yeah, senior. Yes. And it went really well. And it wasn't just for our residents. It was for anybody in the area. The vets were amazing. We had it situated so that no dog was, too close to another dog. We tried to bring one in at a time. It was great. And we were able to register quite a few dogs that day. It was good.
Good. Now shifting gears to the basically meat and potatoes of this conversation. Elections.
Yay!
Elections. So this week we're taping about a week before the annual town election.
Yeah.
Can you give us a preview? And obviously I have a copy of the specimen ballot, town ballot right here, right? Can you give us a preview of what who's running for office this year and what should residents expect in terms of voting dates and et cetera?
So we've got one contested race for library trustees. We have 3 people running, and I apologize to Natalia that her name on the ballot didn't have a space between her name and her middle initial. I apologize. I'll pay more attention to that next time. But that's really the only contested race we have. So select board, assessors, board of health, finance committee, sewer committee, all the usual suspects, school committee. I already said board of health, but they're all 1 or 2 people running for a 1 or 2 people race. Like I said, the only one that's contested right now is the library trustees. We have 3 different people running for 2 seats, which is interesting.
And all of these seats are nonpartisan.
Yes, nonpartisan. So when somebody comes in to vote and they'll say, how come it doesn't tell me, what their party is? Because it is nonpartisan. It's their town positions. It's not about partisanship. It's about who can do the best job for the town.
So for those who may be away on election day, how does absentee voting or vote by mail work?
So generally what happens is the state will send out those white cards every year if there's state elections, and you can decide if you want all elections or one election. Unfortunately, this year for 2025, there isn't any state elections. So if you wanted to vote by mail for town election, we have that available, but you still had to go to the Secretary of State's office webpage, which is actually on our webpage. If you go to my webpage, you'll find the link. But they can register to vote online, and then, or not register to vote, but register to vote by mail. And then I get the notification and we send out the ballots. The last day is the 13th, though, for the upcoming election.
To register by vote by mail.
To vote, yes. Yep. To put the application in to vote by mail.
Is that enough time?
Yes. because it's a town, it's really only going to town. So yes, it'll go out, and they have options. They can mail it back, or they can put it in the drop box.
Outside.
Outside, yep.
Okay.
Outside town hall.
But for obviously a national or statewide election, the deadline would
still be fine.
Would still be fine.
Yeah, we make it work. For a lot of the state, we have a few days after, as long as it's postmarked by 5 o'clock on election day.
Okay.
For town election, it won't be that way. So they got to get them back to me ASAP.
I have so many questions following that. So when election night happens, whether it's a town election, the local town election, or a state election, which is, Massachusetts or national.
Yep.
When your staff your election staff count all the votes, it's not final that night, is it?
No, because we need to go through, and if there were write-in candidates, those have to be taken in account. If you had enough write-in candidates for one spot, again, you have to sort out which ones are blanks. Because if you write Mickey Mouse or if you write Donald Duck, that's still paperwork that has to be gone through. So we have to sift through all of that. The numbers that come out on election night, you have to make sure, are they accurate with the write-in? So, if it was the same name and they did get enough write-ins, they did pull off a good write-in campaign, that has to be accounted for.
And you're matching the numbers for the people that are registered voters that are checking in and checking out. So there's a whole process when you go in to vote too, right?
Correct. Yeah, they have to. You first of all, you have to be a registered voter. You have to be an active voter. There will be a lot of inactives this time.
What is the difference between an active and inactive? What does that mean?
So, if somebody hasn't returned their census in 2 years,
okay,
and they haven't voted. So, if you haven't returned the census and you haven't voted, then you go inactive, because what happens is people move to New Hampshire, and New Hampshire doesn't let us know that, say, Jessica Brunelle is, now a voting resident of Nashua or Concord or wherever. So that person will stay on our voter rolls because we don't know that they moved. We have no idea, which is why we send the census out, right? We want to know who's in town. So if you have not voted since 2018 and you haven't sent back a census since 2019 or 2020, we've gone and made people inactive so that they cannot vote. Now, if they are a resident and they are inactive when they go to vote, they just need to show ID. They need to show proof that they are still in town, and then we just reactivate them. It's very simple. Very simple. They fill out some paperwork for a provisional ballot, and then that gets looked through on my end that night to make sure that they're not registered to vote someplace else. It's a process, but it's worth it.
What is the work on your end to confirm that this person is not registered elsewhere, whether it's in Massachusetts or Florida or wherever?
The only way that I can verify is that they are a resident someplace else in Massachusetts, because Massachusetts system, that we only can track what's happening in Massachusetts. So I can check to see if they are voters in Massachusetts. If they're not, and they happen to be voters in another state, I really wouldn't know.
Okay.
But that's why we make them inactive.
So
in order to make sure that
what's the difference between voter registration and the annual town census? Can you clarify?
You don't have to be registered to vote to be part of the census, right? So the census is, we want to know how many people are in the town, and that's registered voters, unregistered voters, children, elderly. We want to know how many people are part of our town, right? And that's what the census does. You don't have to be a voter in order to be on the census.
Okay.
I will say, though, if I can,
sure.
There's a misconception when the census comes to you, and say you have 3 children, you and your husband and 3 children, and the 3 children, one now lives in Colorado and one moved to New Hampshire, and one's in college in Florida and is going to vote there. So you write that they moved. You put the M in that column that says either M or D. And then you send it back to me saying that they've moved. If they are registered voters, I can't remove them from the census without their signature. So on the back of the census, there is a section which says what my new address is and my signature. A lot of times people can't sign them because maybe they're active military, they're overseas, and maybe the family doesn't want to mail it back. So in that case, we do make those people inactive. Once they're inactive for a certain amount of time, they can be removed from the voter rolls. But unless I get a signature from somebody who has moved, I cannot remove them. And a lot of people don't know that. They send them back, and the next year they're still showing up on their census. Well, it's because I didn't get permission from them to remove them.
Okay.
That's by law.
So, Jessica, what sort of advice would you give somebody, let's say a college student in higher ed that is, Tyngsborough is their permanent address, but they're away, or somebody that's in the military, but they still want to participate in
they
the
can
voting
get
process?
absentee ballots. We just ask that they don't register to vote in Florida or North Carolina, because if they have, then, they shouldn't be voting in two places.
Sure.
But if they are, college student, they can go online to get an absentee ballot. They can reach out to us, and we can send them the form. But that's generally what an absentee is for. It's for those that are away at school or are away overseas or active military. That is what absentee is for.
And then you have those that have, former residents that are obviously United States citizens overseas.
Yeah.
And what's that process like? Because it's very interesting seeing that correspondence, either your email or coming in the mail.
Yep.
We have former residents that were, born and raised in Tyngsborough, live, abroad, Montreal, Canada, Paris, France.
Yep, different places.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still technically on the voter rolls because they still vote here. And they're not residents of a different, country, or they're not citizens there. They can still vote, and then they can reach out. They're called UACAVA voters.
What does UACAVA stand for?
Yeah, you're gonna ask me that. Off the top of my head, United States something or other. I don't know. But they vote absentee, and the process is a little different because we have to put them in the system, the state system, a little differently. But yeah, and you can they actually have the ability to vote via email. So
Wow.
a UACAVA voter, I can email them a ballot. There's a process, and then they can send it back. But yeah,
And it's
they're the only ones that we're allowed to do that with.
And it's obviously secure. There's no
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. That's
Absolutely, yeah.
fascinating.
Yep. And those votes, when they come back, have to be hand counted. So we do that with, there's a process with that too. So the UACAVA votes are supposed to be opened with the Board of Registrars or me and a team of bipartisan people that look through, and we hand count them.
What's the Board of Registrars?
What's the Board of Registrars?
Yeah,
There's 3 people who are responsible, plus myself. And pretty much the Board of Registrars' main job is elections. So they will be a little bit more active going forward. But anytime we have papers, so nomination papers that come in for the town or the state, it requires at least 3 signatures from the Board of Registrars. And we have to make sure that the people on, like if you've, been outside of AOTS and, they have, did you want to sign this petition paper? We have to, the Board of Registrars and myself, have to look through each name, check to see if they're active voters, and, check them off that they are or not. And those papers go back to the state. So the Board of Registrars are supposed to help with that process and will be going forward. But generally, it's just been me doing it. So, but we work together, and we have, especially for the last election, to make sure that the Board of Registrars, again, bipartisan, to make sure that everybody knows that, things are being done the right way, that the right people are, their job is to make sure that this person's name was on there and I did everything I could to figure out if they were a voter or not.
So more like Santa Claus, but checking in more than twice.
Yes. Yes. Checking my list, checking it twice. Yeah.
Well, you're checking in more than twice. So
Yes, we
that's
do.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have.
Okay. So your office does a lot with the open meeting law and being transparent. I mean, everything kind of flows through your office, where it come minutes, agendas, and all that.
Yep.
Why is this so important? And how does your office support this transparency?
Transparency to me, morally, that's what it's a non-negotiable. Residents need to know that there isn't anything that they, I guess, can't know. You know what I mean? This is everything that comes through my office. I mean, there's not many things that are, not open to the public. And if it is open to the public, it's important that they know, where their money is going, or where maybe not, or how their vote works. It's so important that there's 100% transparency, at least in my eyes.
And how should residents know about, accessing public records and reviewing agendas and minutes?
Well, most of the time they can find all of that stuff on our webpage. You can go to the Tyngsborough webpage. Minutes are there, agendas are there, and those are open to anybody who wants to go to them. And it's important for people to get involved and to look those things up. So, and any history or anything that they want to go back vital records wise and trace their own history, we're more than welcome to help.
Is there a service or function in your office that you think more people should take advantage of?
That's a good question. I think that just getting involved, when we have elections, or there are, especially right now, there's spots open for certain committees, people should get involved. The more they know about what happens at town hall, the more they know about what happens with their vote, or a certain committee and what's going on at those meetings, they just get involved. You offer, but you offer a great service where they can log into an app and watch all of our meetings. It's so important to see what's going on, to have an educated response to certain things that happen, right? So, but the more you're involved, it just feels good. It just does.
No, absolutely.
It just does. So.
And you're good on staffing for next week too, right?
I am.
Good.
Yes.
Fantastic.
I do have to make a phone call. I have a couple of phone calls to make, but we should be. And, anybody who wants to volunteer to work elections, I will need a new warden for Precinct 2.
What's a warden?
So a warden for election warden, we have 4, and, one for each precinct. Their job is to ensure that the elections are run properly, that everybody gets to vote, and that the paperwork at the end of the night is filed properly. They are the boss of of that precinct. They make sure that people are getting their votes are being cast properly, that the numbers match at the end of the night. It's an important job. It's a very important job. I loved being a warden.
What are the qualifications of being a election warden?
You need to be available, first of all, 6:30 in the morning till at least, on a town election, maybe 8:30 at night. On a presidential election, it could be a lot later. But you have to be available. It's a long day. It's worth it. I will say that. It is really worth it to get to interact with the community. But there is other than that, you just need to be available. You need to be able to come into town hall, work with me to learn the ins and outs of, how the machines get opened, what happens if they jam, how to close out an election, how to count everything out properly, and how to file things, and then, just the rules and regulations. But it's pretty simple process. You just have to want to do it and be committed to it. We've been very lucky to have the person in that precinct for years. And we'll miss her, but she's going to be still on the voter register. So, it's the same people gives the community the sense that there's continuity and that they know what they're doing, right? So we want to make sure that we have the same people.
And do they need to be residents of Tyngsborough, or?
Technically, no. Not to be a warden, no. I'd prefer it, but
Sure.
no, they don't have to be.
Okay.
They just need to be available during listen, everybody travels. So that's fine that sometimes people aren't going to be for a specific election, but
Sure.
They just need to be available for all elections.
How can residents stay informed and get in touch with you or your office if they have any questions?
And they can always reach out to Town Hall. I do, thanks to your help. We have a great Facebook page.
Yeah, you're on social media now.
I am on social media. We're excited about it. I need to step up my game a bit, but we're trying. So they can reach out that way. They can just call. Again, my door is always open, always.
What's one thing that people don't know about you that they should know?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
You're-
I have a 13-year-old son. We've been residents here since my son was 3. We're hoping that this is home. That my son can say he's, I've been here for 40 years. We love that. We love the town. We love being a part of it and getting, being a part of the different activities that go on. So, but yeah.
You're crafty.
I'm crafty. I'm trying.
I mean, you do these wreaths.
My wreaths. Yep,
So
I love them.
Getting at
Yeah. My hobbies.
Yeah.
My wreathing. I'm trying. It just, it keeps my mind occupied when I'm home, and it's relaxing to, learn a new hobby. Everybody has to have a hobby.
And you get that from your dad because he brings in every season. This past year, you've changed your office.
My
It's
dad, he's amazing. We love decorating the office, and it's been painted.
Yes.
I love that color.
Yeah.
Dad is pretty crafty, and we love the little trinkets he makes and brings in, and we try and keep it at the office. And people ask all the time, "Oh, who made this?" My dad. My dad. Everybody knows my dad. One of the residents had said, "Your father's like the mayor." I'm like, "Oh God," because he's always at the school events with my son, and everybody knows him. So
That's great.
yeah, we like that.
Jessica Brunelle, town clerk for the town of Tyngsborough, thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you for having me.
Absolutely. And that will do it for this episode of Entering Tyngsborough. You can learn more about this town's government by visiting the town's website at tyngsboroughma.gov. For the town of Tyngsborough, I'm Roni Camille. Thanks so much for listening and watching. And until next time, wishing you the best of goodbyes.